right, bows and bow ties. I was briefly listening to the Steve Harvey morning show here in the Strawberry Letter. Every once in a while I'll listen to one. They tend to be so dumb that I can't. So I tuned out. All right, so look, Black Opinionated Woman here. So lately I've been yipping and yapping about putting out different content, and I wanted to share this real quickly. So I was having a conversation with a woman who didn't look like me, by the way. She's a little older than me. Well, cool lady, interesting lady. And we were talking about, well, we were really just catching up. And she had been asking me, how are the kids, all this stuff. I was asking her how she had been doing, you know. She has a little more life experience than I do. And in my previous videos, I had been mentioning how we need to talk about things other than hair, beauty, whatever. I think I said, was it hair, beauty, being angry at black men, and colorism. I was talking with this lady, you know, we're middle-aged, and, you know, and she's older than me now. I'm 46. So she's got kids that are a little older than mine, grown, college, whole 9 yards. And, you know, it's interesting when you talk to married women who've been married for some period of time. Now, granted, I do understand that, you know, there are people who are in different generations, too. There's things that we've dealt with that won't resonate with the younger generations. But I want people to listen to the kinds of things that are discussed. When we were having our conversation last night, and I was like, well, what's really wrong? What do you want? You know? And so she was talking about, let me back up. When we were talking about kids, you know, I was like, you know, I feel like sometimes that I try so hard. I make sure that they have access to educational opportunities. They can enjoy their extracurricular activities, whether it's travel, sports, club sports, etc. Now, she's come through all that. I'm like, you're trying to make sure that your kids are, you know, set up and ready for college and all these things. And I was like, you know, there are times when you're just worn out and you have nothing else to give. And, you know, like, my husband is in the trenches with me, you know, so I don't want to make this seem like it's just me. But I was telling her all these things, and she was like, the problems don't get any easier. Now, I'm not going to talk about the things, the specifics, you know, because that's her private information. But what I will say is middle-aged women go through a season of, I don't want to call it depression, more like your tank is empty. And that's not to say that other people don't go through it, okay? But I don't want to all lives matter this situation. I'm trying to lend a level of specificity. These are the things that should be discussed. When you feel like unappreciated or whatever it is, when your tank runs empty, are you being fulfilled sexually? Are you receiving the intimacy that you want? Are you appreciated by your children? For people who may have stayed home with their children, you start questioning your value once they leave. Now what? What does this mean? I've worked so hard to secure my family. I've worked so hard to raise my children. I've worked so hard to support my husband. I've worked so hard to create a home. I've worked so hard. I've worked so hard. I've worked so hard. And then I'm like, but has your tank been filled up? Has your cup been refilled? And then there will be like this pregnant pause. There's a lot of silence. For those of you who are new to my channel, I'm a Black Opinionated Woman, also known as a B.O.W. I just want to let you know my hair does not normally look like this. See, my daughter was trolling me last night. I washed my hair, straightened it, and I wanted to give myself a trim. And I don't know what kind of jacked up trim that she did. I wound up cutting over 2 inches of my hair to try to get it to a halfway decent state. So that's why I look like I got old lady curls right now. We're going to have to figure out a new situation. So getting back to the point. So, Black Opinionated Woman, also known as a B.O.W. here. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to raise the awareness for those who are not used to having conversations outside of colorism, hair, beauty, and how much they're mad at black men and all these journeys that they're on, I'm like, this is what women really talk about. They talk about stuff like, I'm tired. I understand for those who may be single, they're like, well, what do you mean? You've got support, right? Even with support, you're tired. Raising children is exhausting if you're doing your best to do it right, whatever that looks like. You spend a lot of mental cycles on your children. It's not just the running around and the caring and feeding. Like, caring and feeding also comes in mental. And you will do a lot of sacrificing. Let me tell you something. The things that I've had to sacrifice because I love my family. For those of you who are not cuffed, I would say there is a positive to that too. Of course, I love my family. I would not trade them. But what I will say is there's a lot that comes with it. There's a lot that middle-aged women deal with and talk about that doesn't make it out here on this app. There's a reason why there's a lot of women on medication. They're stressed out. And it's not just black women. It's not just black women. There's a lot of women I know who are sacrificing because they love their family so much. And even if it's not even that, you know what it is? There's a sense of responsibility. There's a lot of women out here who are responsible, loyal, sometimes to a fault. And it's not based off of totally like, this man did me wrong. It's not that. It's easy to fall in that trap. There's a lot that comes with being middle-aged, and especially if you're married, or especially if you've raised children. All the health changes that take place, the lack of sleep, why women aren't sleeping. Why do you think the beauty industry is popping and locking? Young women want to, continue to preserve, but the older you get, like, you're so tired, like the darkness under your eyes and everything. There's things that go on in your skin, right? There's the invisibility of once you get middle-aged for those who feel invisible. Now, I'm not including myself on the invisibility factor because I have too much mouth. Like, I just feel like I'm always visible. But there's a little bit of delusion there, and I'm okay with it. Let me tell you, I remember when I would always hear, like, whether you're in church or whatever, and they talk about real joy from within and stuff like that. I actually got it much later in life. Well, at least I believe I got it. What that means when they talk about real joy in the midst of the mess that you're in, to have real joy. You have to have a strong constitution about yourself at middle age. Because at middle age, you know enough now. You may not be a senior, but at middle age, you know enough. You've been through enough. You're caring and feeding of everybody. Your energy is starting to wane a little bit because you still got the elders above you. Okay? But you've got a bunch of people beneath you. You got all the responsibility in the world. Oh, yes. I said it. We should probably deep dive on more of these conversations. Why middle-aged women drink a lot of wine. We really do drink a lot of wine. Coping mechanisms. How do middle-aged women cope? That's what should be discussed. And I believe that younger women need to see these kinds of things. They need to hear these conversations. It's for them too, so they understand why you don't want to rush into marriage or rush into having children, right? Are you ready with everything that comes with it? If you think about the young people who are out here right now, let's say you're 22. You have all the world in front of you. And you've got a mother and father, hopefully, but you've got a mother at home who's watching you grow, wants you to succeed, and sees all the pitfalls and the things that you're dealing with, knowing that you're not going to take the advice. Let me tell you something. These women have been through a lot too. We're not stupid out here in these streets. And we are watching our young women, nieces, daughters, neighbors' children, whatever it is. We're watching women grow up We're watching the things that they're doing, the mistakes that they're making, and some of them they have to make these mistakes because they're just not going to listen to you. So you know what? Instead of learning through somebody else's pain and experience, you got to let people make that walk on their own. You know, when you're watching all of this go down, and it's kind of like, boy, I wish that they would take advice. Boy, I wish that we can drop this wisdom on them. I'll say this because this is a total sidebar. When middle-aged women tell you something about dating, listen. I remember my mom said this years ago, but she doesn't have to say this to me and my sisters because we're older now. But she was like, let me tell you something. He'll get rid of you before you'll get rid of him. And I used to be like, what? And she used to say things like, you need to change, not him, you. Meaning, if he is continuously doing things that are not favorable to you, not palatable, then you're going to have to be the one to change. Because he's not going to change. You have to change, meaning you're either going to continue to accept it or you're not. When you're sick and tired, you're going to do something about it. She used to always say, when the pain gets deep enough, you will change. You will change. Now, it depends on how painful you want to go. How deep do you want it to get? You're going to make a change. And so I always tell people it'll either be a good change or a bad change, but you will change. Anyway, getting back to the middle-aged conversations. I was listening to her and I was just like, she just seemed like, yeah, I just feel so embarrassed that I'm talking about this at my age. But I'm like, these things happen at various stages in our lives, but she was just going through it. And I'm like, when you listen to people, whether it's talking about the kind of love you want, whether it's in your 40s or 50s or 60s, I cannot believe I got these big old lady curls. And oh, I just hate this. Anyway, so she was talking about the kinds of love, right? Like, she's like, I can't believe I'm saying this. I can't believe my hair is looking like this. I'm going to have to do something. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. We need to be having different conversations. We need to be talking about what does love look like in your 40s and in your 50s, or even 60s rather. I mean, I can't speak to the 60s for sure. I'm 46. I'm 50 is around the corner. What does love look like? What does support look like? What does your relationship with your children look like? So for the people who are in their 20s and 30s, you're on the receiving end right now, you know, whereas I'm in my 40s, pushing 50s. I'm probably more, well, of course I'm still receiving from my mom too, but, you know, I'm the one who's providing that support and that loving, that type of stuff like that. So what does that look like? Well, I don't have a 20-year-old, but I do have a child who's 17 and other children. What does that look like? What does retirement look like? What does life look like post raising children? So a lot of the young ladies out here don't realize the amount of worry and stress that parents have on their kids, especially when you see that the child is borderline reckless and they think that they're invincible. You start thinking like, I've given you everything and it's not enough. Like, I don't know why, you know, for those parents who might be dealing with children who have problems with addiction or I don't know, I'm guessing, right? But the things that middle-aged women talk about, or what if your child has a special need and now you're constantly dedicated to making sure that they are okay? What does life look like when you're no longer here? These are things that women talk about. What we don't need to be talking about every single conversation is why we're mad at some black dude. And the stuff that I just mentioned goes across racial lines. It does. We need to have more of those conversations. Why is it that when you go to bed you can't fall asleep? I keep bringing that up because when I was talking to people, let me tell you something about me, and this is so ignorant. I'm getting ready to talk about just how ignorant I was. A few years ago, I started having heart palpitations, and I was like, what is going on? I thought I was having a heart attack every single time. Long story short, come to find out, I didn't know I was dealing with anxiety. I was like, I'm glad we don't get anxiety. And I remember when at one point my husband had to take me to the hospital, and the nurses had to ask him to leave because I couldn't not. Everything was just weird. And they were just like, do you know what's happening right now? They're like, you're a little bit of an attack right now. And I was like, then my eyes got moist. And I'm like, I don't know why I'm upset. They were like, you are stressed out. They were like, all kinds of things that were happening. They were like, I was like, but I can't get stressed out. I've got Jesus. They were like, oh, honey, black women have always been stressed out and had anxiety. But we were never allowed to say it. We were never allowed to say it. We were never allowed to admit that, like, I can't do everything. We were never allowed to talk about certain things. And they were like, you're going to have to throw some things over. I had no concept of what that felt like. I was scared to death because I thought I was having a heart attack. I can tell you more about that another time. But once I realized that, I was like, okay, I have to start doing things and taking care of myself better. My mental stability. What I didn't do was say I'm going to be on all these 500 journeys. I was just literally like, you know what? Okay, let's start with the basics. First, I have to figure out how to get more sleep. I struggle with that. I continuously struggle with it. And the doctors and people I talked to, they said you're going to start off with maybe Benadryl. Force your body into sleep. I found that it took me about 3 weeks once I started forcing myself to get some sleep. Now, for me, a decent night of sleep is 5 hours. I was living off of 2 every single day. And it was causing all these issues. I literally forced myself. I got to the point where I was getting 5 to 6 hours of sleep. And when I did, it took me about 3 weeks before I stopped having these extreme, I was scared to sleep because I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I had to force myself into sleep. And after several weeks and other things I'd done, it started to get better. I stopped concerning myself on things that I had no control over. Anyway, I'm going to have another conversation about that. I think maybe on the way home. I don't know, but it'll probably be dark by the time I get in the car. All right, so look, let me go ahead and subscribe. Because you know you like me. Stop playing. Y'all need to stop playing out here in these streets. Okay? Go ahead and hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe.